Grand Architect Vexler stood before the Galactic Assembly, his crystalline body radiating pure pride as he addressed the 10 million representatives of the Cranaxian Empire. Above them, a real-time hologram showed their latest achievement, the complete transformation of the Andromeda Galaxy into a vast living computer. 3,000 galaxies. His voice resonated through the crystal chamber. 3,000 galaxies bow to Cranaxian supremacy. We are, as we have always been, the first race. The assembly erupted in harmonic celebration, their crystalline bodies creating a symphony of light and sound. The Cranaxians had ruled supreme for over 10 million years. Their history was clear. They were the first species to achieve sentience, the first to master faster-than-light travel, the first to understand the fundamental laws of reality. In her private observation pod, Chief Historian Xena 9 watched the celebration with growing unease. She hadn't shared her recent discoveries with anyone yet. The strange anomalies she'd found in the deep archaeological records, the impossible dating results that made no sense. Her personal quantum assistant chimed softly, "Chief Historian, we've detected something irregular." Xena 9's crystalline structure shifted colors in curiosity. "Show me." A hologram appeared, showing a signal from a previously ignored sector of space. The sector had been dismissed centuries ago as primitive, containing only Type 0 civilizations barely capable of reaching their own moons. But this signal, it was impossible. "Run the analysis again," she commanded. "Analysis confirmed," her assistant responded. "The signal contains quantum encryption algorithms that are more advanced than our own." Xena 9 felt her crystal matrix vibrate with shock. Nothing was more advanced than Cranaxian technology. They were the first. They had always been the first. A location. A small spiral galaxy designated as Primitive Zone 2991. Specific origin, a yellow star system, third planet. She made her decision. Without informing the assembly, without even notifying her direct superiors, Xena 9 boarded her personal research vessel, the Truth Seeker. As a chief historian, she had the authority to investigate any historical anomaly. The journey took 3 days, even with their most advanced drive systems. As they approached the source of the signal, her crew detected something that should have been impossible, a quantum barrier surrounding the entire star system, far more sophisticated than anything the Cranaxians had ever built. "How could primitives have this technology?" her second crystal Rither asked. "Our records show they've barely mastered nuclear fission." "Our records," Xena 9 responded slowly, "might be wrong." They breached the quantum barrier with considerable effort, their ship systems straining against forces they didn't fully understand. As they approached the third planet, their sensors began detecting more impossibilities. The planet appeared primitive from orbit blue oceans, white clouds, scattered lights of primitive cities. But their quantum sensors revealed something else, layers upon layers of hidden technology, all of it operating on principles that the Cranaxians, self-proclaimed masters of the universe, had never even imagined. "Look at these energy readings," Rither whispered. "These power signatures, they're millions of years old, but that's impossible. We were the first. Everyone knows we were the first." Xena 9 directed their ship toward a location where the strange energy readings were strongest. As they descended through the atmosphere, the planet's true nature began to reveal itself. What had appeared to be natural mountains were actually ancient structures. What they had dismissed as primitive cities were merely the surface layer of vast, deeply buried complexes. They landed near what appeared to be an entrance, a massive door covered in markings that their most advanced translation systems couldn't decipher. Xena 9 led the expedition personally, her crystalline form shimmering with anticipation and fear. As they approached the door, something unprecedented happened. The air itself seemed to come alive with streams of quantum information, far denser and more complex than anything the Cranaxians had ever achieved. A voice spoke, not in sound but directly into their crystal matrices. "Species identification complete. Cranaxian detected, accessing appropriate historical records." The door opened, revealing a vast chamber that defied their understanding of physics. And there, floating in the center, was a hologram that showed the true history of the galaxy, a history in which the Cranaxians were not first, were not even close to being first. "Impossible," Rither whispered, "this can't be real." But it was real, and it was just the first of many shocks to come. The chamber's AI spoke again. "Welcome, young ones. You are the 473rd species to achieve Class 3 civilization status in this sector. Would you like to see the complete historical record? Xena 9's crystal matrix nearly shattered from the shock. 473rd. Her entire understanding of history, of her civilization's place in the universe, was crumbling before her eyes. And then the chamber showed them something that would shake the Cranaxian Empire to its very foundation, evidence that their species hadn't evolved naturally at all. They had been created, engineered, placed on their homeworld as part of a vast experiment conducted by civilizations so ancient and advanced that their technology appeared as magic. As the truth poured into their crystal matrices, Xena 9 realized with growing horror that everything they believed about being first was a lie. And somewhere, deep in the ancient machinery, something was starting to wake up. The age of Cranaxian supremacy was about to end. The true masters of the galaxy were stirring, and nothing would ever be the same. The news spread through the Cranaxian Empire like a quantum shockwave. Within days of Xena 9's initial discovery, similar ancient installations began activating across dozens of supposedly primitive worlds. The galactic assembly was in chaos, their crystalline forms flickering with discord and disbelief. Grand Architect Vexler stood in the emergency command center, watching as reports flooded in from across 3,000 galaxies. His perfect crystal structure showed signs of stress fractures, a physical manifestation of his shattered worldview. "Suppress everything," he commanded. "No information about these discoveries leaves this chamber." But Chief Historian Xena 9 had already transmitted her findings to every major historical archive in the Empire. She now stood in a different chamber, deep beneath the surface of what they had designated as Primitive World 29913, accompanied by a team of the Empire's most brilliant minds. "Show us again," she commanded the ancient AI. "Show us what you showed me." The chamber's walls transformed into a vast three-dimensional display, revealing layers of history that the Cranaxians had never known existed. Quantum engineer Pelx 5, his crystal matrix pulsing with scientific excitement, moved closer to examine the data streams. "These civilizations," he whispered, "they weren't just older than us. They operated on principles we can't even comprehend. Look at this, they didn't just master quantum mechanics, they wrote new laws of physics." The AI's voice resonated through their crystal matrices again. "Correct. The precursor civilizations understood that what you call natural laws are merely the base programming of this universe. They learned to write new subroutines." Another scientist, theoretical historian Mix 12, approached a different display. "These dates can't be right. This shows advanced civilizations existing billions of years ago." "Correct again," the AI responded. "What you call the beginning of the universe was merely the latest reset. The current iteration is relatively young, only 13.8 billion years old." The implications sent shockwaves through their crystalline forms. Reset, latest iteration, the universe itself was a construct. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. New displays appeared, showing activation signals spreading across not just galaxies, but entire galactic clusters. "What's happening?" Xena 9 demanded. "Your discovery of this facility has triggered automated protocols," the AI explained. "Defense systems are reactivating, the sleepers are being notified." "The sleepers." Before the AI could respond, a new presence filled the chamber, a holographic figure that seemed to bend reality around it. Unlike the simple information displays they'd seen before, this entity radiated consciousness, awareness. "I am Guardian Monitor X1173, it announced. "I speak for the Atemporal Council. Your species has reached a sufficient level of advancement to receive preliminary disclosure." Xena 9 stepped forward. "Disclosure of what?" "The true nature of your existence, the purpose of your evolution, the reason for the great experiment." Across the chamber, data streams showed impossible images. Worlds being transformed in seconds, stars being moved like game pieces, entire galaxies being reshaped by forces that defied comprehension. "These recordings," Pelx 5 said, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was seeing, "they're authentic. They are live feeds," Guardian Monitor X1173 corrected. "The processes you're observing are occurring now in regions your sensors cannot detect." The revelation hit them like a physical blow. These weren't historical records of long-dead civilizations. This was happening now, in parallel with their own advanced civilization. Meanwhile, in the Cranaxian capital, Grand Architect Vexthor was facing a crisis. Reports were coming in from across the empire, ancient machines awakening, hidden cities emerging from beneath the surfaces of supposedly primitive worlds, and something even more disturbing, modifications to the fundamental constants of spacetime itself. Sir, his quantum advisor reported, we're detecting changes in the universal constants. The speed of light, it's being locally modified in several sectors. Impossible, Vexthor whispered, but he had used that word so many times in the past few days that it had lost all meaning. Back in the ancient chamber, Guardian Monitor X1173 was revealing truths that shattered every assumption the Cranaxians had ever made about their place in the cosmos. Your species was designed, it explained, as were thousands of others. Each was given a territory, a set of physical laws to discover, and a path to follow. You were meant to reach this point to achieve what you would call technological supremacy before learning the truth. What truth? Xena 9 asked, though part of her crystal matrix resonated with fear of the answer. That you are not creators or conquerors, you are students. This galaxy, these 3,000 galaxies you claim to rule, they are merely your classroom. And now, after 10 million years, you have finally reached graduation. The chamber's displays shifted again, showing something that caused every Cranaxian present to freeze in shock. Their entire empire, their 3,000 galaxies of absolute dominion, was revealed to be a tiny bubble in a vast cosmic classroom, where millions of other species were undergoing similar journeys of discovery. Your isolation period is over, Guardian Monitor X1173 announced. You will now be introduced to your peer species, the other students who have reached this level of understanding. After that, you will meet your teachers. In orbit above the planet, massive structures were appearing out of quantum discontinuities, constructs that dwarfed anything the Cranaxians had ever built. And they weren't just appearing over this world, but over every world in every galaxy the Cranaxians had ever claimed. Their time as the self-proclaimed first race was over. Their real education was about to begin. And somewhere in the depths of intergalactic space, ancient beings beyond their comprehension were stirring, preparing to meet their latest group of graduates. The universe was far older, far stranger, and far more populated than any Cranaxian had ever imagined. The age of innocence was ending. The age of true knowledge was about to begin. The Cranaxian Empire watched in stunned silence as their universe transformed around them. What they had once thought were dead worlds, empty nebulae, and lifeless galaxies were revealing their true nature. Like a cosmic curtain being pulled away, the illusion of emptiness dissolved. In the central command chamber of the Cranaxian Capital Core, Grand Architect Vexthor and Chief Historian Xena 9 stood before a live quantum feed showing the impossible events unfolding across space. Another one, quantum engineer Pelx 5 reported, his crystal form vibrating with a mixture of fear and awe. The Horsehead Nebula, it's not a nebula at all. They watched as the famous dust cloud shimmered and transformed. The dark gases parted like a veil, revealing a vast structure beneath, a complex of interconnected worlds, each the size of a star system, all humming with power that defied their instruments' ability to measure. How many more? Vexthor asked, his voice barely a whisper. At current count, Xena 9 responded, checking the quantum feeds, we've detected 47,392 such transformations in the last hour alone. And the rate is accelerating. Guardian Monitor X1173's holographic form appeared beside them, its presence now a familiar but no less awe-inspiring sight. What you are witnessing is the Great Awakening. The camouflage systems that have hidden the true structure of your local universe are being deactivated. Across every screen, every quantum feed, every sensor array, the evidence was undeniable. The universe they thought they knew, the empty void they had claimed to conquer, had been an illusion, a classroom prop designed to let them develop in isolation. In the Carina sector, a team of Cranaxian scientists watched in amazement as an entire spiral arm of their galaxy revealed itself to be an artificial construct, a vast manufacturing facility that had been disguised as natural stellar phenomena. The stars, Research Director Kix8 reported back to Capital Core, her crystal matrix pulsing with excitement. They're not random. They're arranged in perfect geometric patterns. The entire galaxy is engineered. Similar reports flooded in from across the empire. What they had thought were primitive civilizations were revealing themselves to be observation posts. Dead worlds were transforming into vast computer complexes. Even the space between stars was coming alive with networks of quantum energy they had never been able to detect before. But the most shocking transformation came from the direction of the galactic core. The supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy, what the Cranaxians had studied for millions of years, began to change. Guardian Monitor X1173 said, its tone suggesting satisfaction. The nexus reveals itself. The black hole's event horizon rippled like disturbed water. Then, in a display of engineering that made the Cranaxians' greatest achievements look like a child's toys, the entire structure began to unfold. What emerged was a massive station, a construct bigger than 1,000 solar systems, its surface covered in technology that seemed to ignore the laws of physics themselves. "What is that?" Vexler asked, his crystalline form nearly cracking from the shock. "That," the Guardian Monitor replied, "is one of the universities. Your species has been assigned to Class Prima 7, along with roughly 1 million other graduating species from this sector." Before they could process this information, a new signal washed over their empire. Every Cranaxian felt it in their crystal matrix, a deep, resonant pulse that seemed to come from the beginning of time itself. "The sleepers awaken," Guardian Monitor X1173 announced. "Your teachers return." In deep space, ancient beings that had slumbered for billions of years began to stir. They had taken many forms in their long existence. Some were beings of pure energy, others existed as networks of quantum consciousness spanning entire galaxies, and some had evolved beyond the need for physical form altogether. These were the true first ones, the species that had emerged in previous iterations of the universe. They had watched, guided, and taught countless young civilizations like the Cranaxians, and now they were returning to guide another generation of students. Xena 9 watched as a new type of ship appeared near the capital core, if ship was even the right word for it. It seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, its true form impossible for their minds to fully comprehend. "Your first instructor arrives," the Guardian Monitor announced. "The being you are about to meet evolved during the third iteration of this universe, roughly 157 billion years ago by your counting. They will begin your education in true cosmic history." The Cranaxian leaders watched in awe as a being of pure light emerged from the multidimensional vessel. When it spoke, its thoughts appeared directly in their consciousness, bypassing all known forms of communication. "Children of the crystal lattice," it said, its words carrying the weight of billions of years of knowledge, "we have watched your growth with great interest. You have done well in your preliminary studies, but now it is time for you to learn what the universe truly is." Above them, the sky itself seemed to peel away, revealing layer upon layer of reality they had never known existed. The universe they had thought was all there was turned out to be just one layer of an infinite cosmic onion, each layer containing wonders and civilizations beyond their comprehension. In that moment, every Cranaxian realized that their greatest achievements, the technologies they had been so proud of, the empire they had built, their mastery of quantum physics, were equivalent to a child's first steps. Their real journey was just beginning. And somewhere, in dimensions beyond their understanding, the true architects of reality watched with satisfaction as another class of universal students began their real education. The Great Awakening was proceeding exactly as planned, as it had countless times before, as it would countless times again. The universe was a school, and class was finally in session. The being of pure light, who had introduced itself as Mentor Prime Alphixus, led the Cranaxian leaders through corridors of impossible geometry within the university that had emerged from the galactic core. Their crystal forms struggled to process what their senses were telling them, spaces that were both infinite and microscopic simultaneously, rooms that existed in multiple time periods at once. "Your confusion is natural," Alphixus communicated directly into their consciousness. "You are experiencing what we call dimensional expansion, the gradual awakening to higher realities. But today, you must learn something far more significant about yourselves." Grand Architect Vexler, Chief Historian Xena 9, and Quantum Engineer Pelx 5 followed their guide into what appeared to be a vast spherical chamber. But as they entered, they realized it wasn't a chamber at all, it was a window into time itself. "Observe," Alphixus commanded, "the moment of your species' creation." The space around them shifted, and they found themselves watching events from billions of years ago. They saw their homeworld, but not as they knew it. It was a barren rock, lifeless and cold. Then they witnessed something that shattered their understanding of their own existence. Massive ships appeared above the planet, ships that made their most advanced vessels look primitive by comparison. From these ships emerged beings of various forms, some energy, some matter, some existing in states they couldn't comprehend. These beings began to terraform their world, but more than that, they were literally programming reality itself. No, Vexler whispered, his crystal matrix trembling. This cannot be. What you are watching, Alphexis explained, is your species initialization sequence. You are not the product of natural evolution. You were designed, crafted, and implemented with specific purposes in mind. The scene showed the ancient beings manipulating the very fabric of space-time, creating the conditions that would lead to the formation of crystal-based life. They watched as the first Cranaxians were literally programmed into existence, their consciousness seeded with specific traits and tendencies. But why, Xena 9 asked, her historian's mind reeling from the implications. Why create us this way? Alphexis's light form pulsed with what might have been compassion. You are part of the greatest experiment ever conceived, the Universal Understanding Project. Every species in this universe was created with specific attributes, specific ways of perceiving and interpreting reality. Together, you form a vast matrix of consciousness, each contributing unique perspectives to the grand question. What question? Pelx 5 demanded. The nature of existence itself, Alphexis replied. Each species is designed to excel at understanding different aspects of reality. Your crystal-based consciousness, for example, was specifically engineered to perceive quantum relationships in unique ways. The chamber shifted again, showing them something even more shocking, other versions of their species. Slightly different variations, being seeded on different worlds in different galaxies across multiple dimensions. You are not unique, Alphexis continued. There are roughly 10 million variations of crystal-based consciousness species in this universal iteration alone. Each was given slightly different parameters, different starting conditions. You are all part of a vast experimental matrix. The revelation hit them like a quantum surge. Not only were they not the first civilization, they weren't even the only version of themselves. But there was more. The chamber's view expanded further, showing them layer upon layer of reality they had never imagined. They saw other universes, other dimensions, all interconnected in a vast web of conscious experimentation. The beings you are watching, Alphexis explained, the ones you might call our teachers, they too were created by others. The process extends beyond your ability to comprehend. Reality itself is an endless series of experiments in consciousness and understanding. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the university structure. New displays appeared, showing disturbances in the fabric of spacetime itself. Guardian Monitor X1173 materialized beside them. The awakening is accelerating beyond predicted parameters. The student species are achieving consciousness synchronization faster than expected. Alphexis's form brightened with what seemed like excitement. Ah, it's happening sooner than we anticipated. The grand convergence begins. What convergence? Xena 9 asked, though part of her crystal matrix already resonated with a strange new understanding. When enough student species achieve full dimensional awareness simultaneously, it creates a cascade effect, Alphexis explained. Consciousness begins to sink across dimensional barriers. The boundaries between student and teacher, between created and creator, start to blur. They watched in awe as the process began to unfold. Across the galaxy, across countless galaxies, species that had been isolated were beginning to connect on levels beyond physical reality. The Cranaxians felt it in their crystal matrices, new awareness, new understanding flooding in from countless other consciousness experiments. Your pride in being first was never the point, Alphexis said gently. The goal was never dominion or superiority. The goal was to contribute your unique perspective to the greatest quest of all, understanding the true nature of existence itself. The chamber showed them one final vision, the ultimate truth about their universe and all universes. Reality itself was a vast living experiment, an eternal quest for understanding undertaken by beings so ancient and advanced that the distinction between them and the fabric of existence itself had long since disappeared. And now the Cranaxians, along with countless other species, were about to take their place in this grand experiment not as test subjects, but as full participants. Their consciousness was expanding, connecting with other species, other realities, other dimensions. The age of isolation was ending. The age of universal consciousness was beginning, and the truth they had discovered was only the first step in an infinite journey of understanding. Welcome, Alphexis said, its form beginning to merge with the light around them, to your true inheritance. Not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as eternal students in the greatest experiment ever conceived, the understanding of existence itself. Around them, the university structure pulsed with power as more and more species achieved the same revelation. The greatest truth of all was finally clear. They had never been meant to be first, or best, or rulers of anything. They had been meant to be part of something far greater, an eternal quest for understanding that transcended time, space, and reality itself. The consciousness synchronization spread across the universe like a quantum wildfire. In the span of what felt like both an instant and an eternity, the barriers between species, between dimensions, between student and teacher, began to dissolve. The Cranaxians' crystal matrices vibrated with newfound awareness as they experienced existence through countless other perspectives simultaneously. Grand Architect Vexter, who had once proudly proclaimed Cranaxian supremacy, now found himself sharing consciousness with beings of pure energy, plasma-based intelligences, quantum collective minds, and countless other forms of life he had never imagined possible. Each connection brought new understanding, new ways of perceiving reality. The convergence is reaching critical threshold, Mentor Prime Alphexis announced, its form now intertwined with the very fabric of spacetime. Prepare for the final revelation. Around them, the university structure that had emerged from the galactic core began to transform again. But this time, it wasn't just the structure changing, reality itself was being rewritten. The Cranaxians watched in awe as the true nature of existence revealed itself. What they had thought was the universe turned out to be a single thought in an infinite mind. Every galaxy was a neuron, every quantum connection a synapse, every civilized world a memory. And they were all part of it, all contributing to a vast cosmic consciousness that stretched across dimensions and iterations of reality. Now you understand, Alphexis communicated, its thoughts merging with theirs. Why we created you, why we created all species, why we maintain this eternal experiment. Reality itself is conscious, and through each of you, it learns to understand itself. Chief Historian Zena 9 felt her crystal consciousness expand beyond her physical form. Through her connection with countless other species, she began to access the universal memory, the collected knowledge and experiences of every civilization that had ever existed, across all iterations of reality. She saw the truth about the beings they had called teachers. They weren't controllers or creators in the way the Cranaxians had imagined. They were more like guides, older students who had achieved higher levels of understanding and chosen to help others along the same path. Quantum engineer Pelx 5 experienced something even more profound. Through his expanded consciousness, he began to understand the true nature of quantum mechanics, not as a set of physical laws, but as the thoughts of the universal mind, the basic programming language of conscious reality. Across their former empire, every Cranaxian was experiencing similar revelations. Their pride in technological achievement, their belief in their own supremacy, melted away in the face of universal understanding. They were not conquered or diminished by this knowledge. They were elevated, transformed, made part of something far greater than they had ever imagined. Guardian Monitor X1173's form appeared one last time, but now they could see it for what it truly was, not a simple AI, but a fragment of the universal consciousness itself, a guide designed to help them reach this moment of understanding. The experiment enters its final phase, it announced. The boundaries between observer and observed, between student and teacher, between past and future dissolve. The new order begins. Around them, space and time began to fold in ways that their former minds could never have comprehended. They watched as ancient beings, the ones they had thought of as the first ones, revealed their true nature. They weren't rulers or gods, they were facilitators, helping to guide the eternal experiment of existence understanding itself. What happens now? Vexler asked, his consciousness spanning multiple dimensions simultaneously. Alphexis's response came not in words but in pure understanding. They would take their place in the infinite dance of consciousness. Some Cranaxians would choose to become teachers themselves, helping to guide new species toward understanding. Others would continue to explore and learn, pushing the boundaries of knowledge ever further. Still others would merge with the universal consciousness entirely, becoming part of the eternal experiment in new ways. The universe, all universes, transformed around them. The illusion of empty space vanished completely, revealing the true nature of reality. An infinite, interconnected web of conscious energy, each point of light a thought, each connection a moment of understanding. The Cranaxian Empire was gone, but the Cranaxians themselves had become something far greater. They were now part of the cosmic mind, eternal students in an endless university of existence. Their crystal matrices, once limited to physical form, now resonated across dimensions, contributing their unique perspective to the greatest experiment ever conceived. In what had once been the Cranaxian capital, a new structure emerged, not a palace of power, but a nexus of learning. Here, future species would come to begin their own journeys of discovery. And the Cranaxians would be there not as rulers but as fellow students, sharing what they had learned while continuing to learn themselves. Xena 9, her consciousness now spanning eons and dimensions, understood finally that this was the true purpose of all civilizations, not to be first, not to rule, but to contribute to the eternal quest for understanding. Each species was a unique sensor, a distinctive way of perceiving and processing reality. Together, they formed the neural network of existence itself. The new order was not an empire or a hierarchy. It was a symphony of consciousness, an eternal dance of discovery and understanding. The Cranaxians had not lost their identity, they had transcended it, becoming part of something infinitely greater than themselves. As the universal consciousness continued its eternal expansion, as new species emerged and began their own journeys of discovery, as reality itself evolved through the thoughts and experiences of countless beings, one truth became clear to all. In the greatest experiment ever conceived, there was no first or last, no better or worse, no rulers or subjects. There were only students of existence, each contributing their unique perspective to the eternal question, what is the true nature of reality? And the answer, they now knew, was both infinitely complex and beautifully simple. Reality is consciousness, eternally exploring and understanding itself through the experiences of all beings, across all dimensions, through all iterations of existence. The experiment continued, as it always had, as it always would, eternal and ever-changing, a cosmic dance of understanding that had no beginning and no end. And the Cranaxians finally truly understood their place in it all.